The sun was slowly dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the open, grassy expanse of the city park where the army team had chosen to gather for their much-anticipated celebration. It was a rare moment of peace after months of relentless missions and demanding orders. The men and women who had faced danger together now stood side by side, trading worn fatigues for casual clothes, and the stiff discipline for a fragile sense of freedom. The air smelled faintly of grass and the distant hum of traffic, but what hung thickest was a sense of relief, mixed with an undercurrent of tension. The captain was the first to break the silence, his deep voice steady as he called the team to attention, but this time not for a briefing or a mission. Instead, he smiled broadly and spoke of pride and perseverance. He spoke of bonds forged in fire and the strength that comes from relying on each other as they gathered around the patch of cleared ground that was to be their makeshift barbecue site. The team responded with nods and murmurs, the familiar ritual of military camaraderie slowly weaving its way into the casual setting. One of the soldiers pulled out a battered cooler and began handing around bottles of water and soda, while another set about unpacking the supplies. They had brought enough food to feed a small army. Racks of ribs, slabs of chicken, and piles of fresh vegetables were arranged with a kind of careful order. The smell of charcoal mingled with the crisp evening air as the grills were set up and lit. The flames flickered to life, casting a warm glow on the faces of the tired but resolute soldiers. Laughter began to bubble up among the group as old jokes resurfaced and stories from the field were shared. Not all were light-hearted, but each tale was met with understanding and respect. A young private recounted his first firefight in a voice trembling between fear and pride, while a seasoned sergeant recounted how they had saved a village under heavy fire. The stories seemed to lift the weight of recent months, and the park, which had been quiet moments before, now hummed with life and energy. But as the evening deepened and the smoke curled up towards the darkening sky, someone in the group noticed a shadow shifting near the tree line. The figure was still barely visible, but there was something unsettling about the way it moved. The captain frowned and scanned the edge of the park, signaling to a couple of soldiers to keep watch. The music of laughter and chatter seemed to falter as an uneasy silence began to spread among the team. One of the soldiers who had been closest to the edge of the park turned and whispered to the captain about the stranger. The figure had disappeared from sight, but the feeling of being watched lingered thick in the air. The captain paced slowly around the perimeter of their gathering, looking for any sign of danger. His instincts, honed by years of training, warned him that this was no ordinary passerby. The peaceful evening was suddenly charged with an unspoken threat. Despite the unease the team tried to carry on with their celebration, the grill was tended to carefully, the smell of cooking meat filling the air once more. The captain stood tall and tried to rally the spirits, reminding everyone that they deserved this night. This was their time to relax, to celebrate their survival and the bonds that had kept them alive, but the shadow from the trees haunted the edges of their joy. Suddenly, one of the soldiers shouted and pointed as the stranger reappeared, this time closer, but still obscured by the darkness. The figure paused just out of the light, seeming to study the team with an intensity that sent chills down the spine of those who saw it. The captain barked orders to prepare for any confrontation, but the stranger made no move to attack. Instead, the figure slowly placed something on the ground before melting back into the shadows. The object left behind was small and unfamiliar. A device unlike any they had seen. It pulsed with a faint red light, casting an eerie glow on the grass around it. The team gathered cautiously around it, unsure whether it was a gift or a warning. The captain signaled for a medic and a tech specialist to examine it. But as they moved closer, the device emitted a soft beep that seemed to echo in the silent park. The night had shifted suddenly from celebration to alert. The soldiers exchanged wary glances, realizing that this gathering was no longer just a simple BBQ, but the start of something much more complicated. The captain looked up at the sky where stars were beginning to appear and knew that the peace they had been craving might be harder to hold on to than they had hoped. The story of their evening was just beginning, and none of them could guess what came next. The campfire glow flickered softly, illuminating the faces of the soldiers gathered cautiously around the strange device resting on the ground. Its faint red pulse cast a haunting light across the grass and the dense trees that framed the park. The captain stood tall, his eyes scanning the darkening edges where the mysterious figure had disappeared moments before. There was a heavy silence filled with unspoken questions and rising tension. Each soldier felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a storm waiting to break. One of the younger privates stepped forward, hesitantly, his fingers trembling slightly as he reached toward the device, but the captain's sharp voice stopped him in his tracks. No one was to touch anything without orders. The team had faced booby traps and ambushes before, and the device could be anything, a distraction or a weapon. With a quick gesture, the captain signaled. For their tech specialist, a wiry soldier named Jensen, who had a reputation for being able to crack any code or gadget. Jensen knelt beside the device, pulling out a small flashlight and a set of tools from his bag. His fingers worked quickly and expertly probing the surface for seams or openings. The rest of the team formed a loose circle around him, eyes darting between the shadows of the trees and the glowing device. Their celebration had dissolved into vigilance. The laughter and stories were replaced with whispered theories about who the stranger could be and what the device might mean. Some speculated it was a warning from enemies, while others feared it was the start of something far worse. As Jensen examined the device, he noticed a small panel that slid open, revealing a cluster of tiny wires and an LED screen that flickered briefly to life. The screen displayed a series of numbers and symbols that looked like a code. Jensen's brow furrowed as he pulled out a notepad and began jotting down the sequence, trying to decipher any meaning. The red glow intensified for a moment, then dimmed as if reacting to the scrutiny, and then the device emitted a soft beep that made several soldiers jump. Suddenly, the radio on the captain's belt crackled to life, cutting through the silence. A voice came through, distorted but urgent, a voice none of them expected to hear. It was a message from headquarters, but the words were fragmented and cryptic, warning of an imminent threat. But the connection was poor, and the transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only static. The captain frowned deeply, knowing that something big was unfolding, and their peaceful evening had been shattered by forces beyond their control. The team quickly moved into action, the camaraderie of the barbecue replaced by the precision of soldiers preparing for battle. The captain gave orders to pack up the supplies and secure the perimeter, but as they moved with practiced efficiency, it became clear that the stranger was not done with them yet. From the trees came a sudden rustle, and a figure darted between the shadows, disappearing just as quickly as it had appeared. The soldiers tensed weapons at the ready, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. One of the soldiers shouted as he spotted a faint glimmer on the ground near the edge of the tree line. A small metallic object lay half buried in the dirt. It looked like a tracker or a sensor, the kind used to monitor movements or transmit data. The captain picked it up carefully, studying it, and his expression darkened. He knew this was no ordinary game, and the enemy was closer than they had imagined. Despite the rising danger, the team tried to keep morale high, sharing quick jokes and encouraging words. But the underlying fear was palpable. The city park that had moments ago been a place of relaxation now felt like a trap, the shadows seeming to close in around them. The captain gathered the team for a quick briefing outlining their plan to investigate the device and track the source of the mysterious messages. But time was running out, and the night was growing colder. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, as if warning of something lurking beneath the surface. The device on the ground pulsed more rapidly, casting eerie red streaks across the grass, and the captain realized that they were dealing with technology far beyond anything they had encountered in the field. Before he could order the team to retreat, the device emitted a sharp burst of light, temporarily blinding everyone nearby. When their vision cleared, the device was gone, vanished, as if swallowed by the earth itself. The soldiers looked around in confusion and alarm, but there was no sign of the stranger or the device anywhere. The captain knew that this was no accident, and that their enemy was playing a dangerous game. The park had become a battleground in a conflict that none of them had fully understood until now, as they prepared to leave the park and return to base. One of the soldiers noticed a faint trail of footprints leading away from the trees. The prints were fresh and led towards a nearby alley that opened into the darker parts of the city. The captain debated whether to follow, but the team's missing equipment and the strange messages left no choice. They needed answers, and every second counted. The tension mounted as the team moved cautiously down the trail, each step echoing in the still night air. The city around them seemed unfamiliar and hostile, as if hiding dangers behind every corner. The captain signaled for silence as the group approached the alley entrance, where faint lights flickered in the distance. Suddenly, a shadow moved quickly across the far end of the street, forcing them to stop dead in their tracks. The soldier at the front whispered that they had spotted someone watching from a rooftop far above, and the captain quickly ordered the team to take cover behind parked cars and dumpsters. The night was no longer their friend, but an enemy, wrapping them in uncertainty and fear. The mission had shifted from celebration to survival, and every instinct screamed that the true challenge was only beginning. The dark alley stretched ahead like a gaping maw, swallowing the army team whole. The captain motioned for the squad to tighten their formation, and every soldier pressed their senses to the limits. The city night was alive with unseen threats, and the faintest sound could signal danger. Each step was measured cautious, with eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The faint glow of the street lamps barely pierced, the darkness casting long, sinister shapes against graffiti-covered walls. The team had traded the comfort of their barbecue in the park for a mission that felt increasingly like a trap. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a sharp metallic clang, echoing off the brick walls. Instantly, the soldiers snapped into action, weapons raised ready to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. But when they swept their flashlights towards the noise, there was nothing but an overturned trash can spilling refuse across the ground. The tension remained thick, the mystery deepening as they continued to move forward, aware that each moment brought them closer to an unknown threat. The captain signaled for a halt and called a quick huddle, whispering instructions and assigning pairs for security and reconnaissance. They knew they were being watched, and that the stranger was orchestrating this entire encounter from the darkness. But why? The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, none fully understanding what game was being played or what stakes were involved. The mission was no longer just about survival, but uncovering a secret that could change everything. As they pressed deeper into the maze of narrow streets, the sound of distant sirens mingled with the hum of the city life outside their immediate danger zone. The captain's mind raced through possible scenarios, piecing together the cryptic messages and the strange technology that had appeared at their BBQ. Earlier, the device had pulsed with coded signals, and the mysterious message on the radio hinted at an enemy far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. The team was dealing with something beyond ordinary warfare. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught the eye of one of the soldiers, near a broken fire escape. A figure darted across the rooftop, briefly silhouetted against the night sky, and disappeared behind a chimney. The captain ordered a sniper to take position and attempt to get a clearer shot, but the shadows swallowed the target before a shot could be fired. The team was stuck in a deadly game of cat and mouse, their quarry always one step ahead. Their radio crackled to life with a sudden burst of static, followed by a distorted voice that sent a chill through the squad. The message was brief but unmistakably clear. "You are too close, retreat now." The voice was familiar yet distorted, almost as if someone they knew was warning them to stop. The captain frowned, trying to decipher whether this was a trick or a desperate plea. The unknown adversary was playing mind games, and every second counted as the night deepened around them. Suddenly, the streetlights flickered and went out, plunging the alley into complete darkness. The only light came from the glow of the city skyline far above, but down here the shadows were absolute. The soldiers instinctively raised their weapons and activated their night vision, but the eerie silence was broken by the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly from both ends of the alley. The captain barked orders to prepare for contact. The team braced themselves for an ambush. Out of the darkness, figures emerged, not enemies but civilians, fleeing in panic, eyes wide with fear and urgency. They rushed past the soldiers, shouting warnings about explosions and chaos in the nearby district. The captain signaled to let them pass, but his mind raced, wondering what trap lay ahead. The civilians disappeared into the maze of streets, leaving the team alone once more with the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Then, without warning, a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet, followed by distant explosions lighting up the skyline. The chaos was no longer distant, but encroaching fast. The captain realized their mission had changed yet again from investigation to rescue. The city was under attack, and the team was now in the heart of the storm. They had to find their missing comrade and uncover the source of the threat before it was too late. As they moved towards the center of the turmoil, a sudden crackle on the radio caught everyone's attention. It was the voice of the missing soldier, sending fragmented coordinates and a plea for help. His message was barely audible, but enough to guide the team. Deeper into the labyrinth of burning streets, the captain's resolve hardened, knowing that time was running out and the enemy's plan was unfolding rapidly. The squad moved stealthily through smoke-filled alleys, past abandoned vehicles and shattered windows. Their training kept them focused, but the smell of burning and the distant screams reminded them of the stakes. Each corner brought new dangers, and the device they had found earlier seemed to pulse stronger, as if guiding them towards the epicenter of the chaos. The city was alive with destruction, and the team felt the weight of responsibility pressing heavier with every step. Suddenly, a figure appeared, blocking their path, a silhouette against the fiery backdrop. The soldiers raised, their weapons ready for confrontation, but the figure raised hands in surrender. It was a local informant, someone the captain recognized from past operations. The informant spoke hurriedly, warning that the enemy had infiltrated critical parts of the city and were planning something catastrophic. The clock was ticking and the team needed to act fast. As the informant finished his briefing, a sudden blast rocked the street, throwing debris and sending the soldiers sprawling. The sky above lit up with fiery streaks and the unmistakable sound of missiles whistling through the air. The captain scrambled to gather his team amid the chaos, knowing that their next moves would decide not only their fate, but the fate of the city itself. The enemy was closing in, and the true battle had only just begun. The ground still trembled beneath their feet as the echoes of the recent explosion faded into a tense silence. The soldiers scrambled to their feet, shaken but unbroken. The captain barked orders to regroup and assess the situation. Their missing comrade's last coordinates were etched into their minds, and the urgency to find him surged through every muscle and nerve. The city around them was now a battlefield, lit by flickering flames, and punctuated by distant cries of panic. As they cautiously advanced through the smoking ruins, the team found signs of recent struggle: a torn piece of cloth snagged on a twisted metal fence and deep scuff marks in the dirt, leading towards a narrow alley. The captain's heart pounded with every step, knowing that these clues could mean the difference between life and death. Their missing soldier was close, but time was slipping away like sand through clenched fists. Suddenly, the radio crackled, to life with a frantic voice that was barely recognizable. It was the missing soldier calling out, pleading for assistance, but the transmission was distorted and filled with static. He described being trapped and warned of enemies closing in. His message was cut short, leaving the team with nothing but a vague direction and a burning need to reach him. The captain signaled for a rapid advance, despite the danger, knowing that hesitation could cost them dearly. The squad moved quickly, weaving through shattered cars and piles of rubble. The familiar urban landscape was now alien and hostile, their senses heightened by adrenaline and the grim reality of the mission. The captain felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever, every decision critical, every movement potentially their last. The city was closing in around them, a maze of shadows and smoke, threatening to swallow them whole as they turned a corner. The team was confronted with an eerie scene. The alley was deserted, but the walls were covered in hastily scrawled warnings and symbols none recognized. Their missing soldier's backpack lay abandoned on the ground, torn and empty. The captain knelt beside it, searching for any hint of what had happened, but the silence was oppressive and the air thick with unseen danger. Suddenly, a faint noise came from above, a soft scraping sound that made every soldier freeze. The captain looked up just in time to see a figure dropping down from the rooftops, landing silently. Behind them, the figure was one of their own, but the dirt-smeared face and wild eyes told a story of fear and desperation. The missing soldier had returned, but something was very wrong. Before anyone could react, he lunged forward, grabbing one of the soldiers and pulling a small device from his belt. A flash of light erupted from the device, and several team members collapsed, clutching their heads as if struck by a sudden wave of pain. The captain staggered back, struggling to maintain focus. His mind battling to resist the effects of the unknown weapon. The city seemed to spin around him, shadows lengthening and twisting into threatening shapes. When the attack subsided, the soldier who had been grabbed was unconscious but alive. The missing comrade stood panting, eyes darting wildly as if trapped in his own mind. The captain stepped forward cautiously, demanding answers, but the soldier's voice was distant and broken, warning that they had been compromised, that the enemy had infiltrated their ranks and was closer than anyone dared imagine. The team exchanged grim looks, realizing that the mission had become more than a rescue. It was now a fight to uncover a hidden traitor and prevent a disaster that threatened the entire city. The captain ordered a secure perimeter, setting up defensive positions despite the encroaching chaos and the urgent need to move forward. Each soldier kept a wary eye on their companion, suspecting that the enemy's influence was far-reaching and insidious. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as the team worked feverishly to piece together the fragmented clues from their compromised comrade, the eye. Mysterious device found at the BBQ had been a trigger to activate sleeper agents embedded deep within the city. Their enemy was not just a faceless force, but had taken root within their own networks. The realization struck like a hammer blow, shaking the very foundation of their trust and resolve. As dawn threatened the horizon, the captain received a coded message through a secure channel. It was a warning that a major strike was planned against critical infrastructure, the timing precise and devastating. The team had to act quickly to prevent catastrophe, but the challenge was immense. The enemy's plans were intricate and their resources vast. The captain knew that the next hours would define the fate of countless lives. With grim determination, the squad prepared to move out, leaving behind the ruins of their brief respite. The city was waking to a day filled with uncertainty and peril, but the soldiers were ready. Their bonds, forged in fire and tested by betrayal, had become their greatest strength. The captain looked each member in the eye, vowing silently that they would face whatever came next together. No matter the cost, as they advanced towards the heart of the city, the first rays of sunlight cast long shadows across the broken streets. Suddenly, a radio transmission cut through the tense silence with a chilling message from the enemy, taunting them with knowledge of their every move. The captain clenched his fists, knowing that the battle ahead would push them beyond anything they had endured before, and the true test of loyalty, courage, and survival was only just beginning. The morning light barely pierced the heavy smoke that still clung to the city streets as the army team moved with precision through the ruins. There, footsteps were measured, but their hearts raced with urgency. The captain led the squad forward, eyes scanning every shadow, every alley, every rooftop for signs of their enemy. The chilling message from the night before echoed in their minds, a reminder that the enemy knew their every move and was waiting for them to make a mistake. The city that had once been their home was now a labyrinth of destruction and uncertainty. Buildings scarred by fire and shrapnel loomed like silent sentinels. The air, thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and rubble. The team communicated with hand signals, conserving their energy and focus. Each soldier carried the weight of countless lives on their shoulders, knowing that the fate of the city rested on their success. The captain's voice was steady as he gave orders, but inside his mind a storm of doubt and determination raged as they approached a central plaza. The ground beneath them trembled once again, sending a shudder through the cracked pavement. The device from the park had reappeared this time, embedded in the earth, glowing with a sinister red light. The captain motioned for caution and called for their tech specialist Jensen to analyze the device. Its pulsating light seemed almost alive. The code on the screen rapidly changing, hinting at a countdown or a signal. The tension mounted with every passing second, knowing that disarming it could mean the difference between life and death. Suddenly, a distorted voice echoed through hidden speakers positioned around the plaza. A message filled with threats and riddles that taunted the team and revealed the enemy's sinister plan to unleash chaos across the city. The captain clenched his fists and ordered the team to split into pairs to cover more ground. They needed to locate and disable several similar devices planted strategically throughout the area. Their window to act was closing rapidly. The squad moved with urgency through the labyrinthine streets, each pair encountering obstacles ranging from collapsed buildings to armed adversaries determined to protect their deadly payloads. The battle was relentless, the enemy well-trained and equally desperate. The team fought with skill and tenacity, relying on years of training and the unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of war. Each step forward was hard-won, but they pressed on, knowing the stakes could not be higher. In one darkened alley, Jensen and his partner discovered a device partially hidden beneath a pile of rubble. The red light pulsed faster, and Jensen's hands worked feverishly to decode the complex encryption shielding the trigger mechanism. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, a nearby explosion throwing them both to the ground. Jensen's partner groaned in pain, but Jensen kept working, refusing to be defeated by the ticking threat. Meanwhile, the captain and his closest soldiers moved towards the city's power grid, where intelligence suggested another device was planted. The streets around them were eerily silent, except for the distant sounds of chaos and the occasional crackle of gunfire. As they reached the perimeter, a sniper's bullet whistled past, narrowly missing the captain, signaling that the enemy was watching their every move. The captain ordered a quick assault using smoke grenades to obscure their advance. Inside the control center, the team faced their toughest challenge yet. The device was secured inside a complex locking system rigged to detonate if tampered. With the tech specialists exchanged worried glances, but Jensen remained focused. His fingers dancing over the keypad, the red countdown on the device shrinking with every second. Sweat dripped down his brow, but he refused to give up. Each failed attempt sent a jolt of static through the room, raising the stakes higher and higher. Back on the streets, the battle intensified with enemy reinforcements closing in. The team fought fiercely, protecting their tech experts and covering each other. As they pushed forward, the captain's mind raced, trying to coordinate multiple fronts and keep morale high. Despite the overwhelming odds, they refused to falter. Their loyalty and determination burned brighter than any explosion that threatened to tear them apart. Just as Jensen cracked the final code, the countdown froze, and the device powered down. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room. But the victory was short-lived, as radio chatter warned of another device activating nearby. The team had no time to celebrate. They regrouped quickly and moved towards the new threat, moving through smoke-filled streets and dodging debris. The clock was relentless, and the enemy's plan still in motion. At the final device, a chilling scene awaited them. A group of armed enemies guarded the area, determined to ensure the catastrophic event would proceed. The captain's squad coordinated a precise strike, taking out the guards with surgical efficiency, but the leader of the enemy forces emerged from the shadows, a figure masked and imposing, challenging the captain with a cold, calculating stare. The two locked eyes, knowing this confrontation would decide everything. A fierce battle erupted, with every strike carrying the weight of the entire city's future. The captain and the masked adversary clashed, skill and strategy testing each other's limits. The fight was brutal and unrelenting, each moment teetering on the edge of disaster. Then, with a final surge of strength, the captain disarmed his opponent and secured the device, disabling the countdown forever. The city was safe for now, but the cost had been high. As the dust settled, the team gathered, exhausted, battered, but victorious. The captain looked around at his soldiers, the bonds between them stronger than ever, despite the betrayal, danger, and fear they had faced together. Their celebration from weeks ago at the park, now a distant memory replaced by a hard-earned triumph, but also a lingering question about what threats still lurked in the shadows. Then the radio crackled once more. The voice this time was calm, familiar and chilling. The enemy had not been defeated, only delayed, signaling that this was only the beginning of a larger war. The captain steeled, himself knowing that peace was fragile and their fight far from over. As the city began to heal, the army team prepared for whatever came next, ready to face the unknown together.